The flames had consumed most of the wooden roof when Hannah Brooks saw a man preparing to run inside. She pulled him away from the porch just as a burning section of the roof collapsed where he had been standing. The stranger did not know that the woman who had just saved his life could lose everything because of a project bearing his name. Hannah was returning after repairing a roof without charge for a struggling family when she saw fire reflected across Pine Hollow Lake. She called the fire department, stopped her truck, and ran toward the house. The man struggled against her. "My mother's chest is still inside." "Your memories do not need you to die with them." Hannah grabbed the fire extinguisher from her truck and attacked the flames spreading toward the pine forest. The heat scorched her gloves, but she kept the fire from expanding until the firefighters arrived. The initial investigation determined that old electrical wiring had caused a short circuit. There was no evidence of deliberate damage. The roof was destroyed, but the foundation and the northern wall remained standing. The man introduced himself only as Caleb and said the house had belonged to his late mother. His smoke-covered clothes, rented pickup truck, and helpless expression made Hannah assume he was simply an heir confronting a painful loss. When Caleb suggested demolishing the entire structure, she struck one of the surviving beams. Destroying it would be easy, but this section can still be saved. If your mother protected this house, she probably would not want you to turn it into a pile of wood because of one terrible night. Hannah offered to inspect the structure and sell him materials at cost, under one condition. Caleb had to work beside her. "I will help you rebuild it. I will not do everything for you." The following morning, at Brooks Timber and Supply, a delivery envelope was waiting on the counter. Ponderosa Asset Holdings announced that it had purchased the store's line of credit. Hannah had 30 days to restructure the debt or consider an offer to sell the property. Vanessa Reed entered immediately after the letter arrived. Her expensive suit stood out among the dusty lumber shelves. A carpenter working behind a supply counter should not obstruct a project that could save this entire town. "You purchased our debt and call that rescue?" Hannah asked. Vanessa placed several documents on the counter. She claimed that 82% of residents had agreed to sell or supported the resort project. Maria Lopez hurried over from Pine Table Diner carrying an almost identical letter. The diner's loan had also been transferred to a new owner. "I never agreed to sell," Maria said. "Failing to object also allows the process to continue," Vanessa answered. After she left, Samuel Brooks compared the letters. He warned that several related companies were purchasing loans throughout Pine Hollow. Hannah stared at the figure of 82%. She knew almost every family in town, but she had not met anyone who had been shown a complete survey. Even with her store under threat, she returned to the lakeside house. Hannah and Caleb built a temporary roof covering, removed burned boards, preserved the surviving windows, and installed the first support beam. Caleb handled the tools awkwardly but did not avoid the work. When blisters appeared on his hands, Hannah simply gave him a new pair of gloves. "Do you work with computers?" she asked. "Most of the time." Caleb studied the joints she had marked. "I understand the cost of constructing a large development, but clearly I do not know how to install a straight beam." His answer made Hannah pause. He also knew the property's exact size, the water supply, and the lake's commercial potential. Inside his rented truck were an expensive leather document case and a secure telephone, objects that did not fit the person she had imagined. While resting beside the burned porch steps, Caleb explained that his mother had loved Pine Hollow. He had repeatedly delayed returning. By the time she died, he had lost the opportunity to hear what she wanted to tell him. Hannah admitted that she had studied architectural design in Bozeman but returned home to care for her father after an accident. "Someone once told me that I always choose this town instead of my future," she said. Caleb looked across the lake. "Perhaps the place we return to is sometimes our future." While removing a collapsed section of flooring, they discovered the corner of a scorched metal chest. The letters MS were still visible on the lid. The lock had been distorted by the heat, so they could not open it. Caleb knelt and rested his hand on the soot as though he had just touched his mother's past. His telephone rang. Caleb moved away from Hannah, but the wind carried several broken phrases toward her. "Acquisition map." "Deadline." "Mr. Sterling?" "A business call," he said when he returned. He had not lied, but he had not explained either. Hannah looked toward the survey markers bearing the Sterling Ridge symbol near the edge of the forest. Caleb reacted too quickly when he noticed her watching them. The following morning, Hannah brought an official objection to City Hall. Through a partially open door, she saw a large map that had not yet been rolled away. Brooks Timber and Supply, Pine Table Diner, and dozens of homes were marked in red for removal. In the corner were the words, "Sterling Ridge Development, approved by founder Caleb Sterling." Hannah looked through the glass wall. The man she had just saved was shaking hands with Vanessa and Mayor Richard Cole. She pushed open the meeting room door and placed Caleb's scorched gloves on the table. "You wanted me to rebuild your mother's house while your company was preparing to destroy ours?" Caleb looked at the map, then turned toward Vanessa. "Why is Hannah's store inside the removal zone when the report says residents agreed voluntarily?" Vanessa did not hesitate. "Because she does not yet understand that she has no other choice." Hannah looked at Vanessa, then turned toward Caleb. "Is she right? Do we no longer have a choice?" Before Caleb could answer, Hannah picked up the gloves from the table. She ordered him to leave the construction site, refused payment for her work, and withdrew his right to purchase materials at a reduced price. "I did not pretend to be poor, and I did not arrange the fire," Caleb said. "I only wanted a few private days at my mother's house." "You deliberately hid your full name." "I never said anything false." "Silence may not be a spoken lie, but it still took away my right to make an informed decision." Those words followed Caleb back to his office. The internal report claimed that 82% of residents either supported the project or had not objected. Every transaction was voluntary, and the purchase prices were above market value. But when Hannah took him to Pine Table Diner, Maria placed an offer on the table that was far below the amount offered for the neighboring house. Beside it was a warning that her loan might be called due if she refused to sell. Caleb called Vanessa while they listened. "Stop every acquisition contact. Do not enforce any loans. Send every objection to an independent auditor." "You are suspending the project because of a few personal stories," Vanessa answered. "I am suspending it so the facts can be verified." Vanessa agreed, but immediately after the call ended, she instructed the subsidiary companies to continue sending letters because they did not directly carry the Sterling Ridge name. That afternoon, she met Hannah privately at the store. Vanessa offered to eliminate the debt of Brooks Timber and Supply, purchase the property for 25% more, and award the store a materials contract for the resort if Hannah signed a confidentiality agreement. Publish the same valuation and conditions for every resident, Hannah said. You can save your store. Do not sacrifice your future for people who will sell the moment the price becomes high enough. I will not protect my home by helping you take someone else's. Vanessa warned that the store would lose its restructuring options if Hannah continued agitating the community. Her second opportunity to correct her actions disappeared when she closed the document case. Caleb later offered to repay Hannah's debt himself. She refused. Your money could save one store. The truth could protect the entire town. Samuel suggested that everyone return to the wooden house and open the chest in one another's presence. Inside Margaret's partially burned picture frame, he found a small brass key. It fit the damaged lock on the chest marked MS. Inside were letters, a map of the public lake path, a development plan from 1998, and a photograph of Margaret standing with Samuel and several residents in front of the house. At the bottom was an unsent letter addressed to Caleb. Margaret had not opposed tourism. She required every project to guarantee three things. No resident would be forced from a home, public access to the lake would remain open, and local people would have both ownership and a voice. Caleb opened the letter, his voice tightening as he read, "If you build in Pine Hollow, do not turn this place into beautiful scenery that wealthy people admire from behind a gate." Samuel confirmed that he had once helped Margaret calculate the costs of a small resort operated by a local cooperative. The current project had tripled the original boundaries and eliminated the public path. Caleb looked around the burned room. He had believed the house was only part of his family's history. Instead, it had been the place where his mother held the first meetings about the town's future. Mayor Cole continued defending the resort because its expected revenue could keep the local clinic operating. Hannah said she did not oppose development. She wanted the terms made public and residents included in the decisions. Cole had the authority to delay the agreement, but he feared the investors would leave. Pine Hollow does not have many opportunities left, he said. Then we cannot use its final opportunity to take away the people's choices, Samuel answered. Vanessa sent Cole a summary that excluded most of the objections and pressured him to sign the infrastructure agreement before the community meeting. Meanwhile, Caleb ordered the technology department to preserve all original emails and data. The preliminary review discovered two valuations. The report marked PHA was the version given to residents. PHB showed that the properties belonging to Maria, Hannah, and many other families were worth 35 to 45% more. The records also showed that Ponderosa Asset Holdings was controlled through two Sterling Ridge subsidiaries, exactly as Samuel had suspected. The threatening letters had not come from an unrelated lender. A recovered email written by Vanessa said, "Do not send the real number of objections to Caleb's office. Mark every person who does not respond as having no objection until we reach the 80% threshold." Hannah had not forgiven Caleb, but she agreed to help Samuel and Maria prepare the evidence for the public meeting. She told him, "Do not stand before them as the man who is saving the town. Stand there as the person who must answer for his signature." Caleb looked at Vanessa's email, then at his own electronic signature on the budget approval. She concealed the truth, but I created a system that rewarded her every time she purchased property for less money. Just as everyone prepared to leave, Maria's phone announced an urgent message. Ponderosa Asset Holdings would call the diner's loan due the following morning, despite Caleb's suspension order. Vanessa had decided to take one final gamble. Now Caleb had to choose. Would he protect the largest project of his life, or dismantle the system he had created before it took away Pine Hollow's first business? The Pine Hollow Arena was filled with residents, reporters, council members, and representatives from Sterling Ridge. Vanessa began by promising hundreds of jobs, new tax revenue, and investment for the local clinic. She described the people opposing the project as a small group trying to steal the town's final opportunity. The subsidiary companies have operated legally, Vanessa said. No one has been forced to sell. Hannah did not ask for development to be canceled. Stop the transactions until residents receive the same information, have access to independent lawyers, and are included in the design process. We are not against the future. We are against having that future decided behind closed doors. Caleb publicly identified himself as the founder of Sterling Ridge and apologized to Hannah for hiding his full identity. My silence allowed you to help me without having all the information you needed to make a choice. The fire does not erase that. I approved this project, established the acquisition targets, and ignored warning signs. I am responsible for the system I created. Vanessa blamed the legal department and the subsidiary companies. Caleb presented the findings from the independent audit. Objections had been withheld. Residents who did not respond had been counted as supporters. The PHB valuation had been concealed. Loans had been purchased to increase pressure, and Caleb's suspension order had been deliberately avoided. There was no evidence that Hannah had requested money or special treatment. Maria testified about the notice calling her loan due. Other property owners presented different purchase prices, but every letter carried the same warning that they had to sign immediately. Samuel placed the scorched metal chest before the council and presented the map of the public lake path, the plan from 1998, and Margaret's letter. The documents did not prohibit development, but they proved that Sterling Ridge had used Margaret's name to promote a resort that rejected every principle she had established. Samuel read aloud, "If you build in Pine Hollow, do not turn this place into beautiful scenery that wealthy people admire from behind a gate." Mayor Cole released the confidential meeting records. He had been warned that the support figures had not been verified, but he still allowed the project to continue. Cole admitted that his fear of losing funding for the clinic had caused him to treat objections as obstacles instead of warnings. Caleb announced that Sterling Ridge would suspend the project for a complete audit, remove Vanessa from her duties, preserve all records, cancel coercive contract provisions, stop enforcing loans purchased by the subsidiary companies, and provide property owners with independent legal funding. The council delayed the infrastructure agreement and transferred the records to the oversight authorities and ethics committee. Vanessa had not been found guilty, but she was suspended through the proper process. Before leaving the arena, she turned toward Caleb. "You are sacrificing hundreds of jobs for a few old houses." Hannah answered, "We are not opposed to jobs. We are opposed to losing our homes so we can earn the right to work on the land that once belonged to us." Hannah, Maria, Samuel, and the residents proposed the Pine Hollow Community Land Trust. Strategic land already purchased by Sterling Ridge would be transferred into the trust. The public lake path would be protected. The ecological resort would be reduced in size. Local contractors would receive priority. Part of the revenue would support the clinic and schools. Residents could keep their homes or receive fair purchase offers. Most oversight seats would belong to community representatives. Caleb agreed to negotiate, but he did not personally appoint Hannah as the project leader. The residents voted to select her as their rebuilding representative because of her ability and knowledge of the community. After the audit, Vanessa was dismissed for concealing records, altering reports, and violating the suspension order. Possible legal violations were transferred to the proper authorities. Cole received a formal reprimand, released the agreements publicly, announced that he would not seek re-election, and cooperated in repairing the harm. Sterling Ridge also eliminated bonuses based on acquisition speed and low purchase prices. The company created a reporting system that allowed employees to identify unethical pressure. Samuel became a historical and technical advisor to the land trust, while Maria represented local businesses. Every decision involving the lake path, housing, and construction contracts had to be disclosed to the public before it could be carried out. Pine Hollow had not rejected investment. The town had reclaimed the right to decide whom that investment would serve and what price residents would be required to pay. An independent credit union restructured Maria's loan, allowing her to keep the diner. Contracts signed under pressure were reviewed again. The debt of Brooks Timber and Supply was not simply forgiven. Hannah submitted a business plan, received a low-interest loan, and won an open competition to become a local materials supplier. Caleb remained in Pine Hollow to rebuild his mother's house and hired local professionals for the work requiring specialized skills. Hannah returned only after the land trust documents had been signed and the audit report had been made public. Then she helped him install the final beam. Part of the house was reserved for free woodworking classes. Samuel taught the craft, and the chest marked MS remained there as a reminder that something rescued should not serve only one person. 6 months later, Caleb and Hannah stood on the porch overlooking the public path beside the lake. He did not ask her to forget what had happened. "After the land trust meeting, may I invite you to have coffee with me?" Hannah smiled. "Yes, as long as you still arrive at the store on time tomorrow morning to finish the table for the class." She placed Margaret's hammer on the new work table. Rebuilding a roof is the easy part. The harder part is proving that the people beneath it can trust you. "Then I will not ask you to trust me immediately," Caleb answered. "I will continue building." The house that had nearly burned to the ground did not become a private refuge for a billionaire. It became a place where the children of Pine Hollow learned to build their futures with their own hands. Because when someone truly changes, the question is no longer how much that person once owned. The question is what that person chose to give back.